In this lesson, we'll actually complete the rotate Y pass of our head movement. So again, this pass in our animation is going to give us nicer follow through. Okay, let's take a look at our end result again, just so we can stay focused on what we're trying to achieve. I hit play. Okay, so that's what we're going to be working on, getting some nicer follow through again out of the head and really adding more to the believability of our head turns. So go ahead and stop that, and we can minimize it now and bring back our NURBS curves and select the head control. So where do we want to add these poses for the follow through? Well, we want to look for areas of long segments, like for example from frames 19 to 48. We can add another pose in between there, and also here's another example from frames 60 to 94. We can add another pose in between there just to keep our character moving, keep them looking alive. We don't want any dead poses in our animation, otherwise our animation will look dead, and we don't even have any dead poses in our animation, so that's great. But we want to make sure that our characters are constantly moving, constantly looking like they do have some form of vigor to them. And we don't want to, depending on the certain shot, we don't want to have our characters moving too much, okay, because then that'll take away from the believability of our animation. Maybe in more cartoony animations you may want more movement, but still you need to be careful how much movement you give your character. So there's a balance that we want to aim for. But let's go ahead and add these poses now. So I think we could add a pose on frame 33. So let's do that. We'll go to frame 33 and we'll go into our rotation mode and rotate the head more so that he's looking towards us just a little bit. Remember, just slight movements. So when we scrub through, it looks like our character's head is shaking. Okay. Alright, next let's go ahead and add our next follow through pass, and we can do that on frame 76, and we'll again rotate our character's head so he's looking more at us, not much. Okay. And for our last pose, I think we could add one on frame 115 and again have our character's head turn more towards us, or a little bit more towards left, like that. Okay, now let's go ahead and do a play blast to see our results, to see if we like the movement that we're getting. So we'll just go to Window and hit Play Blast. And I'm just going to pause the video, but remember to spend this time to review the animation to see any areas that you may want to change. And here's our Play Blast. Okay, notice we're getting some nicer movement out of our head turns. But I think we could make a few more adjustments because, like for example, that first head turn coming up right now, I think the character's head is shaking a little bit too much. I like the second head turn, but that last head turn, I think we could also adjust that because right here, seems that our character's head comes to somewhat of a stop. Okay, so we can adjust that. Let's go ahead and close out our F check now and work on that. We'll bring back our NURBS curves and select the head control. And the way we can do that is rather than changing that from the timeline, we can do it more effectively from the graph editor. So let's do that. Let's go to our perspective and graph view. Okay, and we want to select the rotate Y so we can just focus on our rotate Y F curve, what we're keying on. And we'll hit F so we can frame our F curve. Make sure that it's in view. So no matter where our view is in the graph view, we'll just hit F and we get a nice whole view of our F curve. Now let's go ahead and work on those adjustments. So remember, we wanted to adjust the first head turn, so let's do that. To see our area that we want to adjust in more detail, what we can do is select the key, like on frame 33 for example, and hit F, and that, look, watch what that does. That allows us to see our curve again in more of a detail, so we can see the influence that this key has, this pose that we've made, okay, in this region of time. So what we can do is actually go ahead and decrease the value of this key. Alright, so let's hold shift and middle mouse button, click and drag down. Okay, and that'll isolate our movement either up and down. But let's drag down just a little bit. Okay, just to decrease that value there. So when we scrub through, here's what we get. Some more nice subtler follow through in our animation. Okay, so now we can go ahead and work on our next key, which is at the end here. So we can select that key on frame 115 and hit F. And here's another tip. If you want to go ahead and see more your curve in more detail, another thing you can do is hold Alt Shift and right mouse button, click and drag either up and down to scale the curve up and down, or left and right to scale the curve left and right. Okay, or in and out. Okay, and this is great again for seeing more detail out of the F curve. But on this key on frame 115, if we hit F on it to view its detail, notice the reason why we're not getting too much movement is because this region looks too flat, too planey. Alright, whereas if we want our character to look like he's got a little vigor to him, we'd want more of a hilly looking or a hillier look going on with our F curve. Okay, so that's another little tip if you want to add a little bit more movement. That works great for things like the Translate Y for adding bop to the body. Okay, so let's go ahead and adjust that key so that we're getting a little bit more movement in our animation at this span of time. So we'll hold Shift and middle mouse button, click and drag up like that. Not much. We want subtle movement. So if we scrub through, here's what we get. Okay, maybe we even brought it up a little bit too much, so we can hold Shift and bring it down a little bit. Okay, now we can do a play blast of our animation to see what we've done, to see our results if we like them. So we'll go to Window, Play Blast, and again I'm just going to pause the video. Here's our play blast. Okay, so notice we're getting some nicer movement going on from just making those simple adjustments. Alright, so that's our rotate Y movement. And once we've done these things, we can now move on to the next lesson where we're actually going to discuss a principle of animation called arcs, which is going to add more to the believability of our head turns. It's going to make them look more natural. And what I'm actually going to do as well is hold on to this play blast for that next lesson.